Hello, I'm Steven.
And I'm Aaron.
We've just seen
Flight
Flight
Risk.
Risk, new film that's out in theaters right now, starring Michelle Dockery, Topher Grace, and Mark Wahlberg. The film is directed by Mel Gibson, a man whose name commands a lot of respect in Hollywood, especially nowadays. And this is actually kind of a landmark moment for me because I have actually never seen one of the films that Mel Gibson has directed. Seen a lot of the movies that he's acted in, but not one of the movies he's directed. I didn't see The Man Without a Face or Braveheart or The Passion of the Christ or Apocalypto or Hacksaw Ridge. So this film, Flight Risk, is actually my introduction to Mel Gibson as a director. And it is a piss poor introduction because this film is dire.
Well, I have seen a few of his movies. And probably the thing that comes the closest to being the most unhinged like this is probably Passion of the Christ.
Did you see that when you were like 13?
Yeah, I saw it when it came out, like on DVD.
Yeah, family fun.
Yeah, so it was a riveting time to sitting down and watch a movie.
So this film is about a air marshal who has to transport a fugitive across the state to testify against a criminal named Moretti. But it turns out the pilot who is going to fly them across the state is actually an agent of Moretti who plans to take them out into the wilderness and murder the shit out of them, which is actually a line of dialogue in the film.
To quote Topher Grace.
Yeah. And that right there, that little line of dialogue, is probably the first indicator of what's wrong with this film, which is that the script screams first draft.
Yeah, it's actually got a lot of fun ideas, and even in the final film, a lot of fun moments where it's actually kind of working. But the thing that's pulling it back is the terrible dialogue all throughout, and pretty much the entire thing is miscast.
Yeah, it's a film that's severely lacking in confidence because the dialogue, so much of it is just made up of relentless one-liners because it seems like the film knows that they don't really have much of a story going on here and they can't really deliver on the suspense because the suspense is quite frankly laughable. So in absence of that, to try to entertain the audience, introduce as many one-liners as humanly possible. Topher Grace, probably like 90% of his dialogue is made up of one-liners.
Yeah, he just makes comedic remarks about whatever's going on in the scene.
And there's also an inordinate amount of times where characters reference soiling themselves. I counted at least 6.
Yeah.
Including a scene where Marky Mark says that he has created a Jackson Pollock in his pants.
Yeah.
That's the level of dialogue we're talking about here. It's surprisingly childish.
Yeah, and there's times when characters have to talk to people over the radio, and the people on the radio speak in the most direct, like, plain way of speaking. It's, okay, we're going to get you to land the plane. Just don't worry, sit tight. We're going to walk you through this. And, okay, you're flying the plane. It's just, all the dialogue is very, very, like, blunt and direct and just describing what's already going on in the scene.
And another thing to reinforce the film's lack of confidence in itself is that characters talk relentlessly all the time. And it seems like they do that to pad out the runtime because they know that this film is 72 minutes at best, and they need to pad it out to an hour and a half.
That's kind of the other big problem. Like, besides the casting of Mark Wahlberg, he's really a non-factor for most of the movie because he's handcuffed to something for most of the runtime or just flat out unconscious, so he doesn't even get to participate.
Yeah, the supposed main antagonist of the film feels more like a mild inconvenience more than a legitimate threat for most of the film because anytime he actually does manage to gain the upper hand, it's incredibly brief before he gets his ass kicked and then handcuffed to a railing.
I was kind of fine with that for the most part because I actually kind of liked the stuff with them having to fly the plane. I thought that's where, like, most of the tension came from. It's like, okay, you're a U.S. Marshal, you don't know anything about piloting a plane, and suddenly you're having to do this yourself. And I liked the conversations with, like, the radio control guy. At first, it was started out kind of like again with the bad dialogue, like, oh, okay, he's making like small talk and trying to be charming or funny, and this movie's just relentlessly trying to be funny when it's not. But I kind of realized, oh, he's just trying to disarm the situation.
Yeah,
And
that's one of the few instances where I guess it's warranted because it is a tense situation, and you got a crazy redneck Marky Mark trying to murder you. So the guy who's teaching her how to fly the plane is just trying to alleviate the tension in any way he can, even if it means like making a lot of jokes.
that was the stuff I liked the most. Anything that involved Mark Wahlberg just taunting the other two main characters just did not work. It felt like they had lifted Wild Bill out of the Green Mile and dropped him onto this plane. Because all I could hear was Wild Bill taunting Percy.
Yeah,
And just even a lot of the dialogue feels like it was ripped straight out of the Green Mile. It's like if Sam Rockwell was in this role, he probably would have done something with it.
that probably would be good. I actually did not think of that once. You know what I did think though is that this movie kind of feels like the kind of movie that Nicolas Cage would have starred in 10 years ago when he was trying to work off his debt.
Yeah, yeah. Who would he have played?
I think he would have been the pilot.
You think so?
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, you're probably right. He probably would have just screamed the whole time.
Yeah, they give him the role where he gets to let loose and just be a maniac. Another strange thing that goes on in the plot that just speaks to its amateurishness is that the main character also uncovers a ring of police corruption involving a bunch of cops who we never see, who are off screen throughout the entire movie until like the very last second.
That's another thing that's a problem with the dialogue is that they are very clearly trying to make you suspicious of the police figures that she's talking to, the people in the marshals, and the whole time they're like pointing the finger at, like, this is the bad guy, this is the secret bad guy.
Yeah.
And then of course there's going to be a twist where oh see, we got you, but it's so telegraphed that it's really not a surprise at all.
It's a film totally devoid of cleverness. The way that Topher Grace's character figures out very early on that Marky Mark is actually the bad guy is because somehow, in the depths of his idiocy, Marky Mark left a photo ID of the real pilot who was supposed to be flying the plane in the back seat.
Yeah, well, he's also a pretty chaotic character. He doesn't really seem to care about anything that's going on. This is all just kind of a big joke and fun for him. So I'll let that slide a little bit. He even has the line where it's like, "Oh, I knew you were going to be fun" or something like that. So that really didn't bother me, but yeah, it really is just a big convenience.
After a while, it also just kind of started to get boring for me. Like eventually, there was just all it just amounts to is just a lot of scenes of characters sitting down, talking.
Yeah. Well, after the second time Mark Wahlberg is thwarted, it kind of starts to lose its appeal and its luster. It's just kind of just dragging until the third act finally kicks in. Which thankfully is ridiculous.
Yeah, thankfully there is some laughs to be had in the third act, which involves a very cartoonish looking CGI, which is another thing.
Yeah,
there is some really bad effects work in this.
It does not put its best foot forward as soon as the movie starts.
You're
first treated to an establishing shot of a motel that's been stitched together with like a bunch of JPEGs.
And a fake looking CGI neon sign. And then we cut inside the motel where Topher Grace is trying to hide out from the marshals who are on his tail. And then he opens up a window and is greeted to the sight of a fake-looking cartoon CGI moose.
I forgot about the moose.
Yeah, a moose that would give the fake-looking deer from 3 Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri a run for its money in terms of how cartoonish it looks.
Yeah, no, I mainly remembered the hotel shot, the motel shot, and then when they cut to the airport later, when they're about to take off, it's just like a still photograph of a runway. There's a picture of a plane that's been pasted in. There's a picture of some vans, some SUVs that have been pasted in, and then some figures that are very clearly on a blue green screen that have been keyed into the scene.
Yeah, some actors who were like walking across the runway, but they almost look like they're CGI'd in because the compositing is so bad.
Well, I think it uses the volume also. You can tell that they basically just took a plane set and sat it in the volume like what they use on The
I was
Mandalorian.
about to say, that's the Mandalorian, isn't it?
Yeah. There are some shots like outside the plane that don't really look all that convincing. It's just kind of comical the way it's just a wide shot in a plane just cartoonishly streaking across the sky. But anything inside the cockpit, it's just not very interesting to look at for 90 minutes.
Yeah, not the most inventive set decoration. At times, the plane just straight up looked like a bus to me. But maybe that's just what those planes look like. I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
So, as far as the performances are concerned, nobody really makes an impact, I guess, except for Marky Mark. And it's not because he's so good, but it's because he's like the only one who seems to be infusing his character with any kind of energy. Everyone else feels like they have like the barest outline of a character to work with, so they don't really understand the people they're playing, so they're just trying to make the best of what they're doing, because what they have is just a blank template.
Michelle Dockery is trying to make something with this character. She has kind of a vague, for most of the movie, backstory about something that happened with a previous fugitive that she was tracking down. And she tries to do something with her character, but it never really works. They also tried to build like some kind of chemistry between her and Topher Grace that never really feels like it goes anywhere.
Yeah, she's kind of an archetype. She's a person who's like, this mission that she's on is like the first time she's been back into the field because
this is her redemption story.
Yeah, a past tragedy.
Just not interesting.
Yeah, Topher Grace, like we said, it just makes a lot of one-liners and a lot of jokes. And
people like often joke about him where it's, oh look, it's Eric Foreman like doing this, or oh Eric Foreman's in this movie, but it really almost kind of feels like they just took Eric Foreman and dropped him into this.
Yeah, I actually did feel the same. It's kind of funny though. Marky Mark refers to him as Twig throughout the movie, except Topher doesn't look anywhere near as skinny as he did on that '70s show.
No. Mark Wahlberg looks ridiculous.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's another thing. Mark Wahlberg. He plays a bald guy, but his hair is so obviously shaved. It's not like male pattern baldness. It's clearly somebody just took a buzz.
Yeah, he doesn't have one like big bald patch on his head. He has two. Yeah. I don't know if you noticed, but there's the whole front of his head that's shaved from his forehead back, and then there's a piece of hair, like a strip of hair. Yeah. That separates a bald spot in the back of his head.
It's like the George Costanza from like the early episodes of Seinfeld.
It looks ridiculous, and I'm still not convinced that it's actually shaved. His head is shaved because there's a lot of close-ups early in the movie when it's revealed that he's bald. That I swear you can see like a makeup line going across like his hairline where it would be.
I feel like that's just the faint vestiges of his hair slowly growing in because they couldn't be bothered to get like a straight razor to get to get the grain off.
I don't know. It's so weird looking because his head has got his forehead is super wrinkly and then it's just smooth like a bald cap.
Yeah, like
there's like no texture to his head whatsoever.
Like Seven Samurai.
Yeah. Yes.
So I don't doubt Mel Gibson's talent as a director in the past, but that was not present here. Like one day I will see Apocalypto and some of those other films, but oh my god, this was a dreadful way to be introduced to his work as a director.
Yeah, I'm finding it hard to understand what he saw in this. Is this just like
a paycheck?
It feels like it was probably a paycheck for him, or he felt like he needed to get out of the house and do something creative because he's, I don't know, not been doing much else.
It feels like a paycheck to everyone except Marky Mark, who I think probably actually thought he was doing something with this role.
No,
maybe
he wasn't doing anything. No, it's a big misfire. I didn't have much expectations for it. I had some fun with it, some laughs here and there. The finale, they do some ridiculous stuff there, but for the most part, it's just kind of a waste of time.
Yeah, I guess that's like the final question I should ask is, did this meet your expectations, or was this actually worse than you expected? Because I actually think this was probably a little bit worse than I was expecting.
Really? Okay. I thought it was a little bit better than I was expecting.
Mm-hmm.
I saw those trailers and I was not looking forward to watching this at all.
No,
This
me
is
neither.
Not on my radar.
I expected this to be like a really self-serious movie. I did not expect it to be as jokey as it was.
Yeah. I think that's what caught me off guard. I think the comedy, as bad as it is, probably helped it from being a complete slog, because if it was as serious as I kind of thought it was going to be, it would have just been boring the entire way through.
So, final number grade on a scale of 1 to 10?
Like a 4, or a very generous 5.
I was thinking the same. This is 5, borderline 4.
It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad.
So, that's Flight Risk. Don't see it.